Hey guys, we're going to be talking today about greatest common factor and least common multiple. The greatest common factor is known as GCF and least common multiple is known as LCM. So you're going to see this a lot, especially in 6th grade. 5th grade does deal with this somewhat, but not really across the board. This is mainly 6th grade, especially here in Florida. All right, so let's talk about it. So let's come up with a number. Actually, let's come up with two numbers. Now let's use some relatively smaller numbers here. So we're going to use 24 as a good number. So let's start with the question first. What is the greatest common factor, GCF, and the least common multiple of 24 and, we'll say 32 at this point. Okay. So, greatest common factor. Let's talk about that. So, greatest means the most. Common is what they share, what they have in common between the two numbers. And factor is a factor or slash a number, if you will, that can be divided into 24 and 32. Least common multiple is different. It's multiples of 24, multiples of 32. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Let's talk about factors first. Now there's two ways to do this. I'm going to show you the first way, which is called the listing method. So the first is the listing method. So what you do is you take 24 and you think of, okay, what are some numbers that you can multiply together to get 24? What are some factors you can multiply together to get 24? Okay, so those could be 1 and 24. And then what you want to do is you want to start with the biggest and smallest number you can think of, 1 and 24. Those are going to kind of act like your bookends, if you will, like on a shelf where you have books. These are like the ends that hold your books up. So all these are going to be books in between. So what we're going to do is we're going to constantly think of factors between 1 and 24 that make 24. Obviously, you have to be smaller than 24 to make it. Now, the next number above 1 is a 2. 2 can go into 24 12 times. So that's going to be your two other numbers. So 2 is going to go here, 12 is going to go here. And then you keep going. So as you can see, it's going to get smaller here as you go this way, and it's going to get greater as you go this way. The next two numbers I can think of is 3 and 8. Okay? And then the last two is 4 and 6. Barely squeeze it in there. Okay, so the factors of 24 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 12, 24. Those are the factors. And we're going to do the same thing for 32. All right, now the factors of 32, 1 and 32, 2 and 16, 3 can't go into 32, so we're going to skip the 3, 4 and 8, and I believe that's it. 5 can't go into it, 6 can't go into it, 7 can't go into it, that's it. So your common factors, now there's quite a few. Obviously 1 is always going to be a common factor. 1, 2, 4, 8, and that's it. So these are the common factors. But the greatest one is 8. So the greatest common factor is 8. That's the biggest one we've got. So again, that's just the listing method. Okay. Now the other method is to do, you can do prime factorization, which we're going to do shortly. But what I want to do is show you the listing method as well for least common multiple as well. So that way you can see that the other approach can actually do both answers at the same time, basically. So let's do the listing method for, let me see, I'm trying to color code this where, so this is the greatest common factor. We can see that down here, listing method. Now let's talk about the least common multiple. Let's do that over here. Alright, so greatest common factor, we found the factors of 24, 32. This is the greatest. Now we're going to talk about least common multiple. Least common multiple, again, with listing method. So you're going to take 24, and you're going to think, okay, what is the first multiple of 24? Well, it's 24. 24 times 1 is 24. What's the second multiple of 24? Well, 24 times 2 is 48. And then you just keep going. 48, 24 times 3 is 72. Or you keep adding it. 96, 120, 144, and so on. Now the listing methods, it can get quite long. And we're not looking for the greatest common multiple, we're looking for the least. So the smaller the better. In this case, we're going the greatest one. If we were looking for the least common factor, we'd always come up with 1, right? But for in this situation here, we're looking for the least common multiple, so it's the smallest number. So let's go to 32. Let's list the multiples of 32. 32, 64, 96, 128, I believe. We'll make sure I did that right. 128, 160, 192, and so on. Now, there might be more multiples down the way where there's some commonality between the two, but we're not interested in the biggest one. We're looking for the first one. So in this situation, hopefully you can see it, we do. We have 96. 96 is the least common multiple that they both have in common. So the least common multiple is 96. Now, so that's the listing method for both the greatest common factor and the least common multiple. Now there is a way to do this that I'd never learned when I was a kid. When I got older, I said, man, this is great, because I actually learned this as a teacher, this method, and I kind of stuck with this one. This kind of makes sense, a little bit easier. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to do the prime factorization tree. That's the other method. So it's the prime factorization tree, and, hold on, let me write that down. So the second method is prime factorization, which I call it the tree. I'll just put tree here, and Venn diagram. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to take 24. I'm stuck on 18. We used 18 as an example today. Alright, so 24, 32. So what you're going to do is you're going to think of two numbers that multiply together get 24. Okay, let's say 3 and 8. Now, since 3 is prime, that means it can't be divided by anything else besides itself or by 1. That's it. It's prime. You're going to circle it. Kind of like an apple tree. You've got apples at the end of the branches, right? You don't have a branch that's going through the apple. The apple is kind of like the end of it, if you will. The end of that part of the branch. Now, 8 is a composite. You can divide 8 by 2 times 4. 2 is prime. But 4 is composite. You can break that down to 2 times 2. Okay? So basically we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. Or in this case, 2 to the third power times 3. Now that's just extra information. You don't really need to know all that. Just as long as you get to this point, you're good. 32, you've got 4 times 8. You can kind of see the greatest common factor here, right? That's what they have in common between the two, 4, 8, and 8. So that's how you know it's the greatest common factor. Anyways, but let's say we didn't know that. 2 times 2, 2 times 4, 2 times 2. Circle your prime factors. Okay, so this is going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's 2 to the 5th power. Okay, now what do you want to do is we want to make, so we did the prime factorization tree. We got our prime factors. We're kind of looking at this is really what we're looking at. Okay, Not to say you can't look at these two down below. And so what you want to do now is you want to create a Venn diagram between both numbers. So we're going to make a circle here, circle here. That's the Venn diagram. This in the middle is what they both share. So if you look here, this has three twos. 1, 2, 3. This also has 3 twos. Obviously it's got more, but what they have in common is the 3 twos. That's what they have in common amongst them. So the 3 twos are going to go in the middle because that's what they share. And then whatever's different, right? Whatever's different is going to go on the outside. So the 3 is going to go here. The 2 times 2 is going to go here. Okay? Now, remember, this circle is 18. I'm stuck on 18 for some reason. This circle is 24, and this circle is 32. So 3 times 2 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. So this circle represents 24. This circle here represents 32. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. So that's what this circle represents. So you can see what they have in common. They have this in common. The 2 times 2 times 2. That is your greatest common factor. Greatest common factor is 8. Now, you might be asking, well, that's great, but how does that help me with the least common multiple? Well, the least common multiple, what you got to do is just multiply all the numbers together. So if all three of those 2 equal 8, if you multiply them, well, what's 8 times 3? 8 times 3 is 24. 24 times 2 is 48. 48 times 2 is 96. So if you multiply them all together, your least common multiple is 96. So that's how doing the prime factorization tree in the Venn diagram helps you find both answers at the same time. Hopefully this helps. I've got more examples for you. Just let me know. I'd be happy to throw some more up here on another video on my YouTube channel. And I'm here just to help you guys. That's my main concern. God bless, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.